we now are going to take the role for all these policies that we are looking into, the surveillance technologies policy. So why a surveillance technologies policy is needed? Well, one thing is that the city does not have a policy that guides the use of the surveillance technologies in general. So we need to have one. Most of the cities have one, and with mixed results, and we can actually learn from that. Surveillance technologies definitely have been are seen as like invasive of private people's privacy, and in some cases against civil rights and civil liberties. Surveillance technologies can produce negative impacts on individuals, particularly on Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities. However, I mean, not everything is bad with surveillance technologies. We believe that responsible use of surveillance technologies can actually help the city to reach out those goals and that we all are working together to get. And that technology in general can be of great benefit to all Portlanders and visitors. So for that, we are hearing a number of stories. People see a camera on the street, they are asking, what is that camera doing? People understand that the city is collecting information when they use Parking Kitty, or they use Bike Town, or any bike sharing agreements, or like bike sharing services, or when somebody fills off a form, what happens to that data, that information? What happens when I complain in and then my name appears there, and my personal address as well? Who has access to that information? So there is so many questions that we are listening, and that's another reason why we need a policy, so we can create transparency on how the cities uses personal and sensitive information that is collected from the people in Portland. So surveillance technologies, and this is the big definition, right? Is really a device, electronic device, software information system that is designed primarily to collect, analyze, retain, process information from people, basically associated with any individual or group, sometimes tracking, sometimes just to understand what's happening at the moment, and it's an open definition. At the moment, because technology keeps like moving and developing, and with the emergence of technologies like artificial intelligence or big data, big information systems, right now information is so interconnected and can have so many impacts that we need to understand as a government how the information that we collect are actually impacting everybody. So when we talk about surveillance technologies, there is so many types of them. Like these are automatic license plate readers, for instance, initially proposed for tracking stolen vehicles and trying to return them to their owners, or body-worn cameras, for instance, which, by the way, this in our current policy, the city is currently looking into body-worn cameras in a separate track, and likely this policy that we are looking into won't look particularly on these technologies or any other technology connected to something ongoing. Or CCTV cameras, video cameras. These are for tracking, monitoring in Portland. Connected vehicles, drones, and face recognition. In the case of face recognition, the city has already passed a policy banning the technology. And just like that, there are so many other technologies that we are considering in this work. So we are trying to have very specific goals for the policy. The first one is we want transparency. So we are proposing the creation of an inventory of all the surveillance technologies that the city owns and uses in general, how that inventory and the use of the technology is going to be reported back publicly, what are going to be the oversight requirements for that. Also, we are looking into the procurement and use of the surveillance technology. Do we need privacy services around that? Privacy impact assessments, for instance. So we are trying to define all these different impact assessments from the perspective not only of privacy, but also equity and civil rights and civil liberties. And we also want to define an inclusive and effective governance structure for the use of surveillance technology. We are following the track of other cities, particularly the city of Oakland, where there is a commission looking into these issues specifically, reporting directly to their city council. So what is this policy is not? So we won't really focus on any specific surveillance technology. At this point, we are looking into more the general framework for surveillance technologies. And although, as I mentioned, this policy may exempt certain and specific technologies that are not within the scope of the policy. And we will be discussing these cases when the time arrives. This policy will not regulate surveillance technologies in public places. It's only focusing on the surveillance technologies that the city owns and uses. And these policies will not ban any surveillance technologies. We are not looking into regulating anything particularly, but rather setting up the governance that will decide what to do. So for that, we value public participation, we value equity and inclusion. We are trying to look into these issues from the human rights perspective, from a digital rights perspective, and eventually develop this concept of digital justice in the digital world. So we have been using this participatory approach for all these different events that I hope you can join us to make better and contribute with your ideas, with your perspective, with your life views, and make this policy a lot richer. It just enhances our democracy. This is the roadmap. We are dividing the policy development in 3 different modules. The first one, which we are going to be doing in this month, starting March 16, is going to focus on the inventory, oversight of the technology, and the reporting of the use. Then in April, we are going to look into governance of surveillance technologies and the community role in all that structure. May, we are going to look into the procurement of the technology and what are the privacy services and the impact assessments that we need to put in place, and who's going to be doing and how that's going to be transparent as well. So each module, we are dividing those into 2 sections. One is a public presentation and discussion that is going to be recorded and hopefully live streamed. So everybody knows and understands what is going to be discussed there. Those conversations are going to be open to anyone who wants to join, really. We are inviting all Portlanders, everyone, again, who lives, works, plays, or worships here in Portland. And and we are expecting to have a quite diverse set of views from those who might potentially be completely opposed to surveillance, to those who are actually looking at surveillance as a tool for making the city better in many different ways. So those public discussions are going to be followed 2 weeks later with a policy workshop, where that's where we are starting working together on drafting these recommendations that we are talking about for this specific module that later are going to be transformed into the policy. Ideally, we are going to be releasing all the documents, notes, recordings, and the set of recommendations for the policy after the module is over, so everybody will have a chance, an opportunity to comment and provide extra feedback then. At the end of this process, so we are hoping to have a final draft sometime in June that the complete policy that will allow us also to distribute both internally in the city and with the public. So we already have a calendar of events starting with like today, March 2nd, 2022. So every 2 weeks, every Wednesday, starting at 5:30, except for today, but starting at 5:30, we are going to have all these public events that we hope you can join. If you're interested in one of these specific topics, please reserve your place. Please reach out to us via email or through the event webpage. So keep an eye on the event webpage where we are going to be posting materials for reading, recommended websites, recommended reports, specifically for you to be prepared and having a good conversation and informed discussions. This is an experiment, and I hope you can actually make it better and contribute to this path.